So just to recapitulate what we have done the last time, each of us has a sense of self. With that self, we identify ourselves as being separate and distinct from the rest of humanity. Indeed, this sense of self is defined by our race, our gender, our community, our country, and all the other things that make up our history. And we think that's us. But as I pointed out last time, there is no place in the human brain where radio imaging has been demonstrated to have a sense of self. Human brain does not have a sense of self anywhere in the brain. It is an illusion. It is a, shall we say, a illusion that comes on when we wake up. It is like when you put on your computer, the RAM automatically boots up. And when your RAM boots up, the different programs load up into your RAM. So also when your consciousness wakes up from sleep, you see that suddenly you say, aha, I am awake. That sense of I am awake comes from the idea that has been created by an illusion in the brain. It has been created because it is the most efficient, most effective mechanism for social bonding, for social interaction. This is what helps the baby to survive when it is born without claws or teeth or hair. That is how it enables it to establish relationships, first with the mother and then with the father and other relatives around. And as you grow up, this sense of self goes on to establish various relationships within your world. It helps you to plan your future. It helps you to protect yourself. But for all its uses, the sense of self is truly an illusion. It does not exist. It is a creation of what we call as the default mode network. There is a network within the brain, a network of, shall we say, electrical network within the brain. The brain we formerly thought was due to individual cells that were acting. We now realize it is due to the activity of a large number of cells acting together, which is known as the network. There are many networks within the brain, but for your purpose and for the purpose of this class, I would like to tell you that we have to consider two important networks. One of these is the default mode network. This boots automatically when you wake up. It comes into your consciousness. And this circuit includes, for those of you who are neuroscience inclined, it includes the medial prefrontal cortex, the posterior cingulate cortex, the hippocampus, the amygdala, as well as parts of the inferior parietal lobe. Besides this network, which is constantly acting and creating the self, repairing the self, reconstructing the self, looking for ways where this sense of self might require to increase its strength or network outside the body with different individual people. When you start thinking, who am I? What happens to me? What did this person say to me? Why did this person behave this way with me? What should I do tomorrow? How can I improve my position where I am? So Mera kya hoga, that is the default mode network. There is another network, and that network is a reciprocal network. Reciprocal meaning when default mode network fails to act, the task positive network takes over, or rather when the task positive network begins to act, the default mode network is silenced. So the default mode network is the monkey brain, which is jumping from tree to tree, from topic to topic, from past to future to present, and jumping from you to the other people who are there in your network of human relationships. That is what the default mode network is. When you begin to act and perform some action which is focused, the action you're performing is a task. And when you start performing the task, the brain has what is called the task positive network. And the task positive network replaces the default mode network. And this task positive network lights up when the brain is engaged in a task that requires conscious attention. Just to give you an example of a disorder that occurs, there is a disease known as ADHD, attention deficit disorder. So what is this attention deficit disorder? It is when you are acting, when you are working, your default network is also working. So you're trying to do some work and your mind is jumping around from here to there and you can't get anything done. This is ADHD. And this is the result of giving too much play to the default mode network. Whereas when you are engaged in the task positive network, for normal people, what happens is that the default mode network is switched off. Now, why is this important? This is important when the default mode network is on and functioning. It can be the source of your distress. It is the function of creating, maintaining, sustaining the self or the ego. Therefore, somebody hurts your ego, this default mode network keeps on rattling in your mind. The default mode network in the brain keeps on rattling your mind. When you get to work, automatically it is turned off. Provided when you're working, you don't start thinking of I, me, myself, how great I am to do this work, what will I get as a fruit of doing this work, what reward will I get. All when you're thinking like that, then it's not default mode. It's not task positive network. It is default mode network. Therefore, in Bhagavad-Geeta, Krishna says, Karmanyevadhikaraste ma phaleshu kadachan ma karma phalahetu dur marte sangostva karmani. He is, of course, talking about the yajna of, is described in the Karma Kanda. But it applies to all work. That you have a right to do your work, but you have no right to the fruit thereof. If you keep your mind on what you're going to get from doing the work, it is no longer a pure task positive network. It tends to move into ADHD zone. It starts moving into the default mode network zone. Therefore, don't think of the fruit. Don't think of I, me, myself, how great a doer I am. Because if you are thinking in that way, then once again the default mode network will activate. And then also you will find that you are going into this ADHD zone. But when you act in a spirit of sacrifice and devotion, when you are totally absorbed in the work that you're doing, when you are indeed in a state of what is known today as flow, then you are in pure task positive network. And therefore, in following the Bhagavad-Geeta, you must understand that Bhagavad-Geeta is based on very sound neuroscientific principles to give you relief from your ego, to give you relief from your mind, to give you relief from your sense of self, indeed, to give you relief from all suffering. When your mind is idle and you have no functional task positive network to perform, no activity to perform, which will put on your task positive network and suppress your default mode network, then, my friend, you're in trouble. So what do? Then you put on the television, you watch some cricket match, you watch something else. All of that is wasting your time. And when you are involved in saying, my cricket match, my team that is winning, my football team that is winning, then again the default mode network begins. Therefore, it's very important that when you have what we call as discretionary time is the time you have when you are not actively engaged in doing positive work which you are offering to God in a spirit of sacrifice and devotion, and thereby shutting off your default network. What will happen is that when you begin to become free, you need to create an occasion where the default mode network will be sacrificed. So yajna or sacrifice means you are engaged in a task positive network. The default mode network is made inactive. In the Bhagavad-Geeta, Krishna points out, Yajna nam japo yagnosmi. Of all forms of sacrifice, I am that sacrifice, which is the chanting of the holy name. So when you are chanting the holy name of God, consciously, mindfully, with full attention, then you are indeed making sure that your task positive network is on and that your default mode network is suppressed. In fact, time durations are also given in the Shastras. That if you are able to do this more and more, if you are able to spend your time in performing sacrifice, first of all, it is sacrifice in performance of your duty. Performance of your duty is the supreme and most important purpose as described by the Bhagavad-Geeta. You have to do your duty. And that duty must be done not for I, me, myself, not for any fruit, not for thinking I am the doer, but you're doing it because it is your duty and you're doing it in a sacrifice to please God. And when you're doing this, your task positive network is active. And when your task positive network is active, what really happens is that you attain peace of mind. You attain peace of mind. And the more time during the waking hours that you can suppress or switch off this default mode network, this ego creating network, this self-repairing network, the more you will be happy and free from suffering. So when you are awake and during the day, engage in task for positive network, without expecting anything in return and without thinking that you are the doer. This will give you peace. And when you are otherwise not engaged and you are free, then engage in chanting the holy names of God. I have suggested to those who are listening to my lectures to chant the Maha Mantra. Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Iti Shodha Shakam Nam Nam Kali Kalmashu Nashanam Nata Paratarapaya Sarva Vedeshu Drishate. That if you can chant this in Kali Yuga, it is the mantra for Kali Yuga as given in the Kali Santarana Upanishad. It is recommended by Krishna in the Bhagawad-Geeta where he says, Yajnanam Japo Yagmusmi. And the more you can do this, the more you can suppress your mind trying to recreate, repair, reconstruct, and expand and aggrandize the ego, the more you will be at peace. Whereas, the more you are thinking of I, me, myself, the more you are entertaining the mind, the more you are not doing work which is dedicated and sacrificed to the all-pervading Lord, the more you will be in distress and the more you. The sense of self is very unique. The ego is very unique. It is the cause of suffering and it causes pain. Neuroscientists have also found that there are 3 measures that can actually bring you to peace. The first measure is known as social isolation. When you have isolated yourself from everybody. In the Bhagavad-Geeta, this is known as Vivikta Desha Sevitvam Jana Harite Samshadi. Staying apart from the general mass of worldly people, worldly minded people. If you remain in a solitary place without any social contact, social isolation is one of them. The second method found by neuroscientists and people who work with consciousness is that if you deprive yourself of sensorial stimulation, unnecessary sensorial stimulation. So this is called sensorial deprivation. So the more you entertain your senses, the more you listen to non-devotional music, the more you listen to watch programs that are not connected with God or do not remind you of God, the more you engage in entertaining your body or your mind in different ways through your eyes, ears, nose, tongue, sense of touch. So these sensorial stimulations aggravate this sense of I, me, myself. Whereas the less you have unnecessary sensorial excitement, you will get more and more peace. So sensorial deprivation is very important. And the third is called caloric restriction. We tend to eat too much. Therefore, we must look at the Yoga Shastras, which point out that a true yogi fills half his stomach. Half of his stomach is filled with water, 1/4 with air, and only 1/4 with food. Because we tend to eat more than we need. And when we gradually reduce the sense of unnecessary eating, what happens is that this assists us to move into an altered state of consciousness. So, social isolation, sensorial deprivation, and caloric restriction. This is used now in many meditation techniques, even in Buddhism, for example. For example, we have Vipassana. They take you and they socially isolate you. You're not allowed to talk to anyone for those 10 days. not even someone sharing your room. They don't give you anything exciting or entertaining for your sense. No radio, no TV, no books, and nothing. And of course, they allow you to eat only half the day, breakfast and lunch. After that, nothing. That's caloric restriction. And that itself will throw you into an altered state of consciousness. Forget about the mindful meditation that they teach you. So similarly, you must understand that you don't have to go to a place where you're socially isolated. You just have to keep your social interactions, the unnecessary social interactions, to a bare minimum. I don't want you to stick out like a sore thumb in society. I don't want the world to think that you are mad. But I want the world to see you as a reserved person, a respectable and reserved person who doesn't unnecessarily get involved in social activities. So Vivikta Desha Sevitvam Jana Arate Samshadi. In the beginning, it might be necessary to keep the company or the association of other people on the path, especially those who are ahead of you. And Bhagavad-Geeta also talks about that. Matchit matgata prana bodhayantas parasparam kathayantascha mam nityam tushyanti cha ramanti cha. That my devotees, they entertain each other by talking about me, discussing about me. And in this way, they have social contact at the same time, they enlighten one another. Satatam kirtayanto mam yatantascha dridvrataha. So, namasyantastu mam bhaktya nityayukta upaste. So, the sadhu, the yogi, he is always talking about God, enlightening others about God. But that is the purpose of his social contact. But as he becomes more advanced, he withdraws more and more from the general mass of people. Because there is what is known as Sangha dosh. Sangha dosh means you keep the company of a drunkard. Even if you are a teetotaler, he will somehow convince you to have a drink. If you are keeping the company of people who are not leading you on the right path, which is known as kusanga, that kusanga will lead to destruction of your spiritual activities. So, I wanted to stress this period, this part about keeping your mind not in default mode network, but keeping your mind purely in task positive network. Task positive network would be doing your work and your duties in the world towards other people. And task positive network would be when you're not working within the world, chanting God's name. Krishna puts work as supreme. And Krishna says, even if you have attained salvation, even if you have attained enlightenment, you must not stop doing your duty and your work. Karmanaive hi samsiddhim astita janakadaya. Loka sangraham eva api sampashyam kartum arvasi. Yad yad acharati shreshtas tatta devataro jana sa yad pramanam kurute lokastadanu vartate. He points out that even kings such as Janaka attained salvation by performing their duty and by serving the general mass of people, they became enlightened. Just as leaders in society do, so do other people follow. And hence, it is better even when you're enlightened to keep doing your duty and your work within the world and fulfilling it. But you don't have to isolate yourself by running away from the world. In fact, if you do that without silencing your mind, you will get even greater sorrow. Sannyasastu mahabhavo dukkham aptuma yogatah. You have not learned how to silence the mind. And not having learned to silence the mind, you will get only sorrow when you abandon the world. But if you work in the world in a spirit of devotion and renunciation, you will realize the supreme without delay. So engage in task positive network within the world. And when your time is idle, chant the holy name. So that is also task positive network. In this way, you will silence the mind, which is the creator of the ego. And as the ego becomes silenced, you will become free from suffering. Dukheshu anudvigna mana sukheshu vigata spriya vita raga bhaya krodha stitati mani uchate. You will not be depressed when there's cause for sorrow. You will not be excited when there's cause for joy. You will be free from attachment, fear, and anger. Such is the stage of steady wisdom, which you will become when you silence the default mode network most of the time. Why do I say most of the time? Because there are times when you will require your sense of self. When you're signing a legal document, when you're dealing with other people who are trying to assert or trouble you, then you need to have the sense of self. But by and large, by keeping satsang, or even better, learning to be completely in vivikta desha sevitvam jana rati samshati, you will find peace. When you constantly engage in doing your duty, which is a task positive network, and also when you engage in chanting God's name. With this, I will pause here. If there are any questions, I will be happy to take them up. Yes, Arjun?
Yes, sir. Thank you, sir, for the wonderful lecture. So we have a few questions from the audience. And the first question is, can just chanting a mantra be helpful in changing our way of thinking? Or does it really require a thought, word, and action in alignment? Or can a beginner just initiate it by chanting it all along?
See, there are three things that you need. One is you need an overarching philosophy of life, which is given in the Bhagawad-Geeta. This is to give you a proper idea of what the world is about and how you should behave. The second is that you need to follow right conduct, which means don't engage in activities that disrupt society. Don't engage in, of course, doing all kinds of things which are socially forbidden and frowned upon. And even things that are socially popular, like eating products of violence, taking intoxicants, having illicit sexual activity, and gambling. These things you have to keep away. This is called right conduct. The third thing is that you have to do activity which totally suppresses your default mode network, which is yajna. And that yajna could be doing your duty, which is the most important. And when you're not having duty which keeps you occupied, to keep chanting the holy name of God. So these three things are required, which I'm repeating. Number one, overarching philosophy of life, which is in Bhagavad-Geeta. Number two, making sure that you have right conduct in life. And number three, when you engage in performing yajna as your duty and as chanting God's name.
Okay, sir. Thank you for the very comprehensive answer. So there's another question. How can one get more awareness that they're acting in the default mode? As you know, most of the time, a lot of people think that they're acting out of free will.
So free will is default mode.
Okay.
When you're doing nothing, it is, why is it called default? Default means it's the mode, electrical activity in the brain, which is the default. That's why it's called default mode. So if you're doing nothing else, then you are guaranteed to be in default mode.
Okay. Okay, sir. So the next question from the audience is, most of us are not very familiar with spending alone time with ourselves. Maybe because we're scared to face our own loopholes, so we engage ourselves in necessary or unnecessary activities.
Then seek, then if you are in such a situation, then you are at a stage when you need and you seek satsang. Satsangatve nissangatvam, nissangatve nirmohatvam, nirmohatve nischalitatvam, nischalitatve jivan mukti, bhajagovindam, bhajagovindam, govindam bhajamudamate. So, seek out people who are on the right path and keep their company. There are so many spiritual groups everywhere. Join one of them. And I'm not being selective. Whatever works for you, works for you. So join a spiritual group where people spend their time talking about God, enlightening one another, sharing their knowledge. So that is satsang. So if you're not ready for Vivikta Desha Sevitvam, Jana Aritir Samshadi, then at least be ready for satsang.
Yes, sir, rightly said. And so we have one more question, but I think you have already answered it from Facebook. How do you give a pause to the mind's thoughts? But I think you have already answered this.
Yes. Either engage in work in a spirit of sacrifice and devotion, or engage in chanting God's name.
Okay, thank you, sir. So that's all we have for today.
And if you don't believe in God, don't worry. Because when you constantly chant God's name, you're speaking to God. And when you speak to God, God will speak to you. And when God speaks to you, you will get faith that there is God.
Okay, sir. Thank you. Yes.
All right? Okay.
Yes, sir. That's all.
Hari Om, Jai Shri Krishna, Hare Krishna.
Thank you very much, sir. Thank you.